You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Welcome to Volatility Views, the premier program for volatility traders. Each week, we'll take a deep dive into the world of volatility with in-depth analysis, trading activity reviews, strategy breakdowns, cutting-edge education, and much more. We'll also bring you exclusive conversations with the traders, researchers, and asset managers who are reshaping the volatility landscape. If it involves volatility, then you'll find it on Volatility Views. Volatility Views is brought to you by MIAX, one of the fastest options platforms in the world. MIAX is now trading options on the SPIKES Volatility Index, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction for confident trading, all for competitive exchange fees. It's time to make a change and give yourself an edge with SPIKES. Learn more about SPIKES at www.miaxoptions.com/spikes. Options involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. And now, it's time to take a deep dive into the world of volatility. It's time for Volatility Views.
All right, everybody. That music means we're back. Yes, for the first time here in the new year, back in 2020 for a little bit of the old Vol Views. My name is Mark Longo, coming back at you after a bit of a New Year's and holiday hiatus. Hope you guys enjoyed your holiday season and indeed your New Year's season, wherever you may be, whatever you choose to celebrate. Hopefully you had a good season. Hopefully you're still having a good season, a good kickoff here to the new year. Hopefully better than what we're seeing in the markets, at least out there. We'll get to that in a little bit. Hopefully your New Year's was a little bit better than mine. I spent most of mine in pretty much the haze of a fever dream. So hopefully yours is a little bit more fun than mine. Pro tip, if you want to watch your health, do not have children because, they find every plague and pestilence and then they keep bringing it to you. And then they keep it around forever. It never goes away. So it will just keep popping up over and over again, and you will find yourself fighting it again and again. So if you want to watch out for your health, do something else. Let's just put that out there. And let's see, someone else who did not follow this advice either is the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian. He's got twice the exposure to the plague and pestilence. I just have one. He has two, so I'm not sure how he is upright right now. But Mr. Meatball, how are you doing? Have you managed to dodge the legion of plagues and indeed pestilence that is floating around out there, sir?
Yeah, it's amazing. Over break, all of my kids got sick and my wife got sick and I didn't get anything. It's almost like I have some sort of power, something that, I maybe would derive from a magic sword or something like that. All I know is that, my immune system is almost like it's derived from, the most powerful man in the universe. That's how good my immune system is.
Did you turn around and maybe turn your normal house cat into, let's say, a majestic beast that you could ride into, let's say, a battle? Could you do that?
Yes, I did.
Well, then that's just a beautiful thing. I had that power for a little while myself as well. I felt good because my wife and my son were just trading this disease back and forth what seemed like months. I fought it off. I was good. I fought it off for months, kept doing the shows, and then it just struck me down. It laid me low, listeners. But here we are. We're back. We're ready to go here. Talk a little vol here in the new year. So without further ado, let's get right into it. A little bit of the old Volatility Review.
It's time to break down the latest developments in the volatility trading world. It's time for the Volatility Review.
All right, everybody, let's get to it. Let's review some vol here for the first time in 2020. By the way, I'm never going to get old saying that. It just sounds so futuristic. 2020, Back to the Future. They were going ahead far fewer years than we already are right now. So 2020 just seems like just so far flung into the future. But here we are. We find ourselves in January of 2020, and the market's not exactly liking what it's seeing out there. I guess you can call it a little bit of a assassination volatility floating around, for lack of a better term. Out there, of course, you've all heard by now or seen the strike there in Baghdad on the Iranian general, causing a little bit of turmoil in global markets. Most of the major indices off fairly strong. Of the Dow, S&P, it's the laggard of the day, actually, only off a mere 0.6%. The Nasdaq's threatening 0.7%. The Dow threatening, actually just ticked down 0.8%. So Dow leading the charge to the downside. Obviously, gold and crude both getting a bit of a lift. WTI back over that 63 handle again, so up nearly 2 handles on this news. We've been talking for a while. What's it going to take to maybe lift crude? Unfortunately, didn't get a TWIFO in yesterday. We'll get back to that next week, of course. But apparently it was the assassination of a major general that exacerbates Middle East tensions. That's what could do it. So interesting stuff out there. Fading into the background, it seems like, at least right now in the immediate aftermath of all the wake of this drama, is, of course, the notion that the trade war is still apparently a signing ceremony on the horizons. People liking that. And, of course, some pretty weak manufacturing numbers coming out of the ISM this morning, 47.2. That is the lowest level they've reported since June of 2009, when it was 46.3. So that's a pretty bad number on the manufacturing side, showing perhaps some weakness on the manufacturing side of the economy, which is never a good thing. Of course, they pin that firmly on the weakness of global trade coming in to hit that, so maybe not a surprise there, but still an interesting number, and that's kind of getting lost in the sea of Middle East drama out there. Most of our major friends on the vol side are a little bit north of where we were from the last time we gathered here together back in, a year ago, and a decade ago in 2019. Spikes right now is at about a little bit north of 13.5. Actually, I think it's a little bit north of that now. So actually just ticked, it was at 13.5. Now it's ticked up to about 14 since we started the show. So that puts it up about nearly 2 handles from our last show, about 1 3/4 points. Similar tale out here in VIX Cash land. VIX Cash at about 13 3/4. That puts it up about 1.5 points from where it was this time last show. And our old friend VVIX is the one that's bucking the trend. It's at about a 92.5, a little bit shy of that right now. So that puts it down, actually, about 5.5, 5 3/4 points from where it was this time last show. So let's start there, Mr. Meatball. We haven't had a show since the new year has begun, obviously, so it's a lot to unpack here. What's lighting up your tape here, and what are the crazes in the pitch chat? What are they up to here in the early days of 2020, sir?
Well, if you were thinking that the assassination of the second most powerful man in Iran would, and oil popping and potential stoppage of the Straits of Hormuz would cause markets to really sell off, you would be incorrect. If you would think that an ISM number that was a huge miss and showed negative growth would send us lower, you also would be incorrect. So the answer is I can't believe that this is all we're able to get. Last night looked like we might actually have a bit of a sell-off. We didn't get it, and now we continue to kind of just coast. Apple has been green today. Apple over 300. How about VXAPL? There's one. What I would notice is on top of kind of oil, is that this last few 50 points column, vol has firmed up while we've rallied. That is usually not a sign of a logical rally, an orderly rally. So I am wondering whether we have a kind of a mini 2018, a mini 2018-19 type, mini Jan 2018 developing where we could see, vol rally and the S&P rally before some sort of sell-off end of month.
Yeah, that's usually a combo that you don't see too often, and when you do, you're right. Usually there's something else perhaps swirling in the ether that, as your cohort there, Mr. Rothleff likes to say, has yet to reveal itself. Looking over here, seeing what has revealed itself, we know already that the Spikes futures are not trading. They continue to not trade as we come into the new year. We're hoping to get some more firm information on when we can exactly see those products trading again here in the new year. So hopefully when we hear back soon from the MIAX folks exactly when they've been working with the regulators throughout the holiday season. That stuff doesn't take a rest for the holidays, and hopefully we'll have more concrete information to share with you guys on that front. Fairly soon coming into the show here, we saw the VIX futures moving. Interesting stuff shaping up out there for the start of the new year. We saw a little bit more than a point, about 1.1 handle gulf there between the Jan future and the cash, and closing in on 3 points with the Feb future to the cash out there. So a decent little front portion of the curve out there. Mr. Meatball, anything surprising you out there in the VIX futures term structure as we're kicking off the new year here, sir?
I mean, they kind of held up the Feb March spread, and now it's kind of normalized. It's been there's some weirdness in the curve that's been 3 months to expire for a while. I don't know what the deal is there, but there's definitely some weirdness. Jan is basically kind of ignoring today's move and is setting up for another relatively low expiration. It's been interesting. I have not seen anything that really strikes me as abnormal here, other than, like I said, the kind of back end has been kind of 3 to 4 months has been kind of consistently a little bit hitched.
It's been a quiet period, obviously, for the Spikes futures for obvious reasons. Not so much on the Spikes options front. Since the last time we chatted, there actually has been some paper going up out there. Our old friend, he or she, who likes that 1x2, they like to roll it, and they like to roll it early, and that's exactly what we saw over the past few weeks here. Remember, when we last checked in on Spikes options at big positions, were the Jan 1726, right around 17,000 by about 34,000 contracts. That's pretty much what we had. Might have been 1632, so it was a little bit more OI out there. Actually, it looks like about 8,000 more OI since our last show. So volume continuing to grow out there in Spikes land. So yeah, they're rolling pretty early, rolling out to Feb now. It's the Feb 2617 1x2 that's dominating the tape. 17,000 by about 30, almost 35,000, 33,600 or so. So a bit of a funky ratio out there. Number 3 are the Jan 26s with about 5,000 open. Number 4 are the Jan 17s with about 2,500. Round out the top 5 are the Jan 14 halves. Again, looks like about 58,000 contracts open. That puts us, again, up about 8,000 contracts from last show. So it's been an interesting, actually active period for the last couple of weeks in Spikes, even though the futures weren't active. And that's, of course, what everyone was waiting for to really kind of drive some paper out there. So be interesting to see what happens when those futures do come back. Going on out to the VIX options land, kind of a surprisingly quiet, kind of halting end to the week, despite the fact that we have a lot of literal headline risk playing out in the marketplace. This kind of goes back to what Mark was saying a little bit earlier, that you might have expected, a lot of noise out there, but not a lot of smoke, but not a lot of fire really to back it up out here in terms of big moves in the vol space or indeed big volume out there. In fact, there was only about 193,000 contracts on the tape coming into the show a little bit before it. Now we're up to about 250,000. Still nowhere near robust paper that you might expect if you had seen the headlines of what's been going on out there. You would think, maybe just assume that there'd be a lot more paper on the tape. Maybe even a whole ADV's worth, which is right around 423,000 contracts right now. And we're not even seeing that. So pretty light times out there in VIX options land, which may indeed be surprising. Certainly was to me. Sounds like it was to Mark as well. But that's kind of the market we find ourselves in these days. It takes a lot to really move the needle these days. You know, we've had a lot of the back and forth Sturm und Drang of the trade war for nearly 2 years now. And a lot of that, after a while, will maybe make the market a little bit inured to other shocks. And that's apparently what we're seeing. Look at the Saudi attacks. The market shrugged those off like they were nothing. Maybe this can be lumped into a similar vein out there. Let's go out to VIX options land, see what's open out there right now. Only costs you about 90,000 contracts to break into the top 10 out there in VIX land. If you do, you'll be with the Jan 18s for about 89,700. Number 9, the March, all the way out to March, our first and only March here in the top 10. March 32 halves, 92,000 open there. Number 8, the Jan 12 half puts, 94.5 open there for number 8. Number 7, the Jan 13 puts, 101,000 contracts there. Number 6, the Jan 14 puts, 106,000 contracts open there. Number 5 here, 109,000 of the Feb 14 puts, our first and only Feb in the top 10. Number 4, the Jan 30 calls, $1.11 on the tape. That 30 strike maintains its allure to someone out there, or maybe many someones out there. Number 3, the Jan 20 is $1.54 on the tape. Number 2, the Jan 25 calls, 225,000. And number 1 out here this week, not quite $250,000, 241,000 for the Jan 22 calls. Again, if you know anything about VIX, you know that's pretty light for the number 1 spot. And the overall OI reflects that as well. The OI is still pretty light out there. About 5.25 million contracts open. That's about 3.6 million on the calls and about 1.65 million or so on the puts. Worth noting, by the way, in the top 10, pretty much 50-50 calls to puts. So an equal breakdown up there, which is kind of interesting. Like I mentioned, not a lot really lighten it up. And this is, of course, a truncated holiday week. We'll start from today and roll backward. I think it's just easier for people to parse it and grok it that way when we do that. Like we said, today, not exactly a rock'em sock'em robots day. About 250,000 contracts on the tape. One of the bigger prints was the Feb 21s. Actually, the biggest print of the day. Feb 21s going up early in the morning for 65 cents. Looks like a 10,000 lot. Maybe, no, these just went up similar prints, different times. 10,000 each of the Feb. It's going to be Jan 13 puts, and then we've got the Jan 37 calls going up for 9,000 lots for a whopping 6 cents. Those are the biggest prints going up today. Yesterday was a little bit more active, not a ton, about 350,000 contracts on the tape. The big print was actually the Jan 13 puts going up for 53.5 cents on splits, obviously, 20,000 times. Feb 20 calls also going up 15,681 times on the opening auction there for 71 cents. And then we've got, let's see, the Jan 14s going up 10,000 times for $1.30. And most of these are all opening, and most of these are not spreads, which is kind of interesting. Jan 29 is also 10,000 times. 10,000 was the trade du jour yesterday. 29 calls going up 10,000 times for 12.5 cents. And the Jan 14 puts also going up 10,000 times for $1.10. These are not spreads, though. So just all very similar and related size paper, but not exactly of the spread variety. Wednesday, obviously, we were closed for the New Year's holiday. Tuesday, a little bit more active, but not a ton. 370,000 contracts on the tape there on Tuesday. The big print was Jan 11 half puts going up in one print 14,000 times. Looks like a total of a little more going up on the day. That one up against looks like the 12 half straddle, maybe about 4,500 times. I don't think they did a combo. It's like more of a straddle. Doing that 4,500 times against looks like actually a total of 18,000 of the Jan 11 half puts. So straddle with puts, we've kind of seen that before. Usually if you see it in VIX land, you kind of see it the other way. You see the straddle probably with the calls because the upside is where the interest or the concern usually lies. So that's where we see it. We don't usually see it with the puts. So maybe that's a sign of the times and a pretty heavy ratio on the puts. 18,000 versus 9,000 total. Well, 4,500 on the straddle, but 9,000 contracts obviously total. So interesting, funky print going up there. On Tuesday, also saw 25,000 of the Feb 35s going up for 30 cents, pretty much lifting the offer there, but that was a late print. And we got the Feb 30s going up for about 12,000 times for about 50 cents, and a 10,000 lot for good measure of the Jan 40s. For 6 cents as well. Monday, another pretty light day, pretty light week overall, as you might expect. This is a holiday week, obviously. 314,000 contracts was the volume for Monday. The big print up there looks like a bit of a ratio put vertical Feb 13, 15 put vertical going up 20,000 by 15,000 times. 18 cents on the 13 puts, 83 cents on the 15 puts. Both of those pretty much trending mid-market. Total, by the way, a lot of puts going up that day. Total about 32,000 of those 13 puts went up on the day. Also worth noting, a risk reversal traded that day as well. The Feb 13 half, 35. Risk reversal went up 10,000 times just in one print alone. Looks like they did it for 30 cents on the puts and 35 cents on the calls. So interesting stuff there, about a nickel there. And again, if you're selling one and buying the other, looks like total about 20,000 of the Feb 35 calls went up, so maybe a little bit more love for that upside. So haven't seen a lot of size risk reversals going up out here of late, so that may be worthy of note as well. Also saw a print 10,000 of the March 14 puts for 57.5 cents, which is right off the bid. Maybe a little bit of a aggressive March line in the sand there. Either way, a lot of funky paper, kind of all over the place. Not a lot of themes to the week outside of maybe if you want to look at it in a lot of put paper like that straddle versus. Maybe we'll start with that one, Mr. Meatball. Did you notice this straddle versus puts here? It was the 12 half straddle versus 11 half puts going up with a heavy ratio towards the puts. I don't talk about straddles versus puts that often. So first off, what are your thoughts of that trade in general? You know, doing it for a size ratio towards the puts, and then B, any other paper catching your eye in this relatively light holiday week, sir?
Well, the size ratio makes sense to kind of flatten up the delta because you're getting a pretty heavy delta on the long call versus the put. So my guess is they're trying to get it relatively close to delta neutral. And then, the 11.5 put, what do you get out of that? Next to nothing. It's not a terrible, I don't see us getting below 11.5. So I get why you might do that. But the straddle itself does make some sense. It basically says, I want to hedge my upside, but if vol really does hit the floor, I want to get paid well for it, and that's why the ratio, and probably to keep the delta somewhat under control.
What is lighting up the tape in the pitch chat on these kind of truncated holiday weeks? Is there anything really going on in there? Is there any beginning of the year trading going on? Any activity lighting up their tape, sir? It's
been slow. Everybody's waiting for Apple to pull back so they can get short. A lot of kind of the same thing on the S&P. It's been just if you look at advancers decliners, which is I'm not normally like an internals fundamentals chartist guy, but when you see the market consistently up and decliners are outpacing winners, that tells you that it's fund flows into index funds into things like the S&P. So basically, the things that people don't think about when they're doing passive investing is the fact that really all you're doing is buying the best performing stocks as they continue to go up. And those tend to be the ones that lose on the sell-off. But yeah, a lot of, when is Tesla going to back off? When is Apple going to back off? When is, and then, it was funny. Everybody was so mad about this morning because we didn't move enough to sell puts back to the market, and we didn't move enough to reposition any calls or long puts in the VIX. It was, I will tell you today, disappointed a lot of people who saw kind of the price action overnight and were really disappointed by the carry through this morning. The lows were at midnight overnight, not anywhere near the open, which I think was disappointing people.
I forgot how many Apple and Tesla diehards you have floating around your pit chat. It's not all VIX and spikes all the time over there. They sling a few other things over there as well. Speaking of other things, let's look on some other products that I know you guys like to sling out there in the vol space. Let's go on out to your old friend, product everybody loves to fade, VXX. Not living up to the fade this week, actually ticking up. How dare it? How dare it move up here this week? Back up over the 15 handle, if ever so slightly, at about a 15.15 or so. That puts it up slightly, about not even a quarter of a point from where it was this time last show. So all of you who are banking on additional continued juicy erosion, not so much the case here this week. But you can't be mad, as it has come out quite a bit over the past few months. And we've talked many times even on this program how maybe that isn't too sustainable in the near future, and that's certainly been the case over the last couple of weeks. Volume today in VXX, decent actually. It was about 220,000 contracts coming into showtime. The ADV is right around 250,000 out there. Let's see as we're rolling into the new year what the hot positions are out there in VXX right now. Let's go. Number 10 here are the Jan. These are actually expiring today. The Jan expiring on the 3rd. 17 half calls, 25,000 of those bad boys. I'm going to go out on a limb and say those probably aren't going to work out, but hey, anything could happen. Got a few hours left. Number 9, we got the March 60s with 25,000 of those as well. Number 8, the Jan 26 calls, 26,000 open there. Number 7, we've got the Jan 15 puts, 31,500 of those bad boys. Number 6, the Jan 22 puts with about 34,000 there. Number 5, also 34,000 of the Feb 24 calls. Number 4, 35,000 of the Jan 22 calls. Number 3, 37,500 of the Jan 13 puts. Numero dos here, the Jan 15 puts with 41,000. And number 1, still with a bullet out there, are these Jan 14 puts with about 70,000 open. We were talking about these before. They seemed like they were looking pretty good. This last couple of weeks, price action, not so much, but still plenty of time for these bad boys to kick in here. They got 2 weeks, so a lot of erosion can happen over the course of 2 weeks. Probably a much better chance than these 17 halves do, expiring later today. Total of about 1.6 million open with about 900,000 on the calls and about 700,000 on the puts. So all of you out there who say VXX is nothing but a put trade, well, calls continue to outshine the puts here from an overall OI perspective out here. Looking at the top 10 right now, looks like it's pretty much 50-50 right now. Once again, calls to puts here in VXX as well, with 5 each in our top 10. Look at some big prints out here. Let's see what's going up today. The big print out there, there's 2 of them, actually. First, the big single print are 10,500. The Feb 20 halves, these are going out on the 7th, so February 7th, going up for 40 cents on the bid. So maybe someone doing a little bit of overwriting out there. And then also looks like a bit of a 1x2. Our old friend, the 1x2 popping up here in VXX, a Jan 1619. 5,000 by 10,000 times here, doing it for 66 cents versus 23 cents. So doing it for a net of 20 cents out here. You know, Mark, we talked obviously a lot in the past about 1x2s in VIXland and where they should be used, where they should not be used. Haven't seen a lot of those going up of late, I think for many reasons out there in VIXland. Maybe we're seeing a little bit of a resurgence of them out here in VXX. We don't talk about them as much in VXX. Are you as much of a fan of the old 1x2 in VXX and see the utility for it as you do in VIX proper, sir?
Well, I don't love it because it is more of a moving target. Although if you were going to do it, right now is the time to do it, because they've really, up until probably today, they had really priced out vol premium through kind of this week. So you had kind of a free look at a vol pop and almost got it today, right? You almost got it. You just didn't quite. And so, yeah, I don't love it, but I get why you might do it right now. There's a reason they don't do these regularly in VXX. It's because VXX is a moving target. VIX is not.
There we go. You know what? It is our first show of the year, so there's not really a lot on the earnings front for us to dig into from a volatility perspective. So what better way to kick off the year than by getting some more of you here onto the program? So let's do a little bit of some extended fun with a little bit of the old volatility voicemail.
It's time to share your thoughts and opinions with your fellow volatility traders. It's time to check the volatility voicemail. Make your voice heard by dialing 779-669-4VOL. Posting a comment on the optionsinsider.com, sending an email to questions@theoptionsinsider.com, or posting your questions to twitter.com/options or facebook.com/theoptionsinsider.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Vol voicemail. My personal favorite part of the show is because when you guys get to join us, we always have to rush it. We don't have a lot of time for it on the show. We have guests. We have a lot of things popping off. So it's the new year, it seems like an appropriate time to welcome on more of you. Let's kick things off, actually. I know something you guys enjoy. We were actually a little bit remiss in getting it posted. We did it late this year, so I do apologize for that. But it's live now. Just went live shortly before the show. It's our annual Guess the Volatility for the end of the year game. We do it with VIX and indeed with spikes, and we did it last year. You guys loved it. We got it back. We kept the zones the same to make it easy for you guys. So if you haven't, head on over to @options over there on the Twitter machines. Make your voices heard. So quite simply, you get to guess where you think VIX and or spikes will close for 2020. Remember, if you want to win the fabulous prizes, you have to reply or direct message us or email us with a very specific pick. We're just giving you zones on the Twitter poll. If you want to win the fabulous prizes, you have to email or write in or DM with your specific pick. And remember, it has to be within our radius of 1 point to even qualify for the prize. So if you're the closest but you're outside of a point, it ain't going to cut it, listeners. So you got to be within our bullseye radius there. We gave you the same zones as last year. So the low zone around 8 to 11.99. Got that normal zone of around 12 to about 16.99. Then we got the elevated zone of about 17 to about 23. And then the old crazy town zone, which is north of 23. It just went live before the show, Mark. So it's very early days here, but which of these four zones, I won't make you guess your VIX for the end of year yet. I will say that till the end of the show. But where do you think our audience is leaning? Which of these four zones, which one do you think they're leaning towards right now, sir?
I'm going to say the lowest one.
Interesting. They actually were leaning there for a while. It seems like recently a surge of normalcy has infected them because exactly 50% now are in the normal zone of about 12.1699, elevated 22.2%, that's 17 to 23. The low zone of 8 to 11.99 has 16.7, and then 11.1% of you are feeling crazy town, north of 23. You got a few days left to get out there and make your voices heard in the poll. Already we're getting people playing along, given their specific picks. We got a bunch of them filtering. We have to go back and sort through all of your answers from last year, too, to see if we do have a winner who was within that one poll. So far this year, we already got some votes. We got our old friend MCB saying 28 even. Actually, I should precisely 28.0000. So there you go. 4 decimal points of accuracy there. Then we got Suleiman S. Lalani saying 13.2. So quite the range out there so far. By the way, if you're wondering what people voted for last year, we had the same zones and very elevated, which we call Crazy Town this year. It was called very elevated last year. That actually was the winner with 36, almost 37%, 36.9%. Number 2 was elevated, 17 to 23. That had 32.4%. Number 3, I should say, was the normal zone, 12 to 16.99. That had 28.8%. And a meager 1.8% coming in for the low zone of 8 to 11.99. Remember, a year ago, we were in a little bit of a different regime from a vol perspective. We were north of the 20 handle, threatening 25 coming into the new year. So a little bit different frame of reference when people took this poll a year ago than where we are right now. So that obviously that recency bias colored some of these prognostications here. But we'll have to go through and see. I know we had a lot of people sending in individual picks, so we'll go through them all, collate them all, see if any of you guys were within our 1 point close. By the way, it did close at 14.12 this year, so a little bit higher than it had been leaning towards the end of the year. Remember, we had a little bit of an uptick on vol towards the end of the year there, so that put VIX a little bit north of maybe a lot of you were leaning around that 12 handle, but nope, ticking up north of the 14 handle towards the end of the year. So yeah, we will get all those numbers crunched and collated and the appropriate winners notified and send out. We love sending out fabulous prizes. That's fun for us. So hopefully you guys are winners. And if you're outside the United States, like many of you were who won Mark's book in the past, we'll make sure you get something speedily sent to you. I know that's been an issue in the past. But let's see what else we've got cooking over here. Craig Garbers wants to know, I'll just send you guys a quick message about a vendor you had on your broadcast some time ago offering live data trade simulators along with some volatility monitoring tools on their platform. I don't exactly remember who they are, but I'm interested in using this type of scenario to visualize some ideas/groupings and compare them. Their offering may work well with this type of a concept. if they're still offering live simulators, or if you might remember who they were, or know of a quality source for that, a reply with that information would be appreciated. Hopefully that helps to jog your memory about that. And thank you in advance if you're able to do so. Well, Craig, the one that probably matches your description that jumps to mind for me would probably be Matt and his ORATS platform. They've obviously been on the show many times, and they do a lot of our earnings volatility and the earnings move and earnings move results reports. So we talk about a lot of times during earnings season. So that one probably jumps to mind. They also have a lot of the back testing, the visualization. They used to have that platform. I believe it was Acumen that Andrew used to be involved in. That was kind of a 3D topographical visualization platform of options unusual activity. So they do had some visualization. I'm not sure if that's still one of their offerings, but the best thing to do, check it out, orats.com, ORATS.com, and check it out for yourself, or we have your email. We'll put you in touch with Matt after the show here as well. And hopefully he's the only one I can think of that really matches that description there, Craig. So hopefully that is helpful for you. All right, next up, Danigan, maybe Denoggin. I like that. I like it better as Denoggin. We'll call him Denoggin. Denoggin wants to know, will we see any new vol products enter the market in 2020? Great question. We've had a lot of these products swirling around the space for some time. Many of them have been featured on this show over the many long years that it has run. Some have come to fruition. Many others have not. I'm looking at you, NASDAQ, whatever the hell you're calling those products over there now. It used to be SKUDEX and VOLDEX. Now they're on their fifth iteration and called something else. Obviously, spikes came to fruition after a long gestation period. So we like to see more products in the space. It just doesn't seem like the regulatory environment. Look what happened with the spikes futures. The regulatory environment for new vol products is, shall we say, not exactly favorable. Even products that are approved already that want to list a future on an existing option contract have to jump through additional hurdles. So it's a challenging time to list a volatility product. That said, the only one I can even think of right now that has any heat behind it is the one everyone was asking us about, because they had that Bloomberg article a few weeks ago. I believe the ticker was SVIX, Mark? Was that the one that everyone was talking about as the new XIV?
Yeah, SVIX, and having gotten a little more color, I'm pretty sure that they're going to get themselves launched by the end of Q1. So they really sound, the people I talk to sound pretty confident it's going to get moving. And so I think it'll be pretty fascinating. And they eventually want to launch a whole suite of products. So not just SVIX. They actually asked me, well, if you're going to launch after SVIX, what would you launch next? Maybe this would be a good poll question. And my answer was, how about a real double VIX again? Because that's really what we need is a real UVXY again, not the neutered one that we have.
This is going to remake all the greatest hits of the vol space, this company.
Well,
I love it.
The nice thing about UVXY is intraday, right? We all know the long-term flaws, but within a trading day, if you wanted to match the performance of the VIX itself, the best way to do it was using old UVXY, because essentially the VIX moves about twice in percentage terms, about twice as much as VXX, and so using UVXY, your old UVXY, you could get the percentage match of the VIX if you thought you were going to get a big intraday move or an overnight move, and now that's gone, and so I think the powers that be were at least mildly intrigued by that concept.
Yeah, if these guys can make it happen, more power to them. We'll have to get them on the show then. If you sound like they're credible and they have a chance in Q1, that's a pretty short time frame. So we'll definitely have to get them on the show to pick their brains about what they're offering. If they can make a new UVXY happen, that would be great. I will have to say that the only way I'm touching any option on a new UVXY is if they put somewhere in the prospectus, right, that they can't do any intra-contract updates to the product. No more of those. If they put that in the prospectus, that they can't change the entirety of how the product works after the bell in the mid-cycle, then yeah, by all means, I'm there for that. So it sounds like you're more optimistic than some others have been on that SVIX. So that's interesting. We may have to get them on the program and pick their brains about what it is. It's clearly capturing the imagination of folks. People clearly want a short vol product again, and another 2X product would certainly be interesting, I think, as well. Interesting stuff here. Yeah, I wasn't as optimistic on their chances. So interesting to hear that you are. Let's see here. Next up, we've got just Phil. Just Phil wants to know, any updates on the Spikes futures? And I wish I did. Kind of said at the top of the show, nothing yet. You can keep your eye on myaxoptions.com/spikes. That's kind of the mothership for all the info on Spikes that has not just the quotes and the data and that snazzy little video. A link to a cool show you may have heard of called Volatility Views, but also all the press releases and kind of latest news about all things Spikes. So I would check that. Obviously, also follow the MyAx folks on Twitter and things. And as soon as those products are back, I'm sure they'll be back on the show next week and they'll give us more of an update on what they're hearing. But anything regulatory, it's challenging, to say the least here. Oh, I have the numbers here as well, Mr. Meatball, for where we prognosticated vol was going to be at the end of 2019. And I think it's fair to say that me and the Rock Lobster were caught up in the furor of volatility that was consuming everyone at the end of last year. You were feeling a little bit more downside to this. So at the end of last year, we picked end of 2018, I should say, we picked where vol would be, just like you guys did. We picked where vol would be for the end of 2019. The Rock Lobster picked 1601. It's not bad. About two handles away, not exactly within our radius of victory. I was a little bit north of him. I was 17.1, so I was still feeling a little bit. At the end of the day, what you're picking, right, is the seasonality of volatility in December. And December is a challenging month, as we've seen. Usually, it's a quiet. Historically, December is a very quiet time. Look at the futures here in the term structure for the entirety of 2019. They were pricing in a very quiet, a very tranquil December. And yet, that's not exactly what we've seen the last couple of years. So we were trying to fade in a little bit of upside surprise into that. Saw some of that, but not quite as much as we were hoping for. Mr. Meatball, you were feeling a 12.04. So you were about 2 points to the downside. You were looking good right up until the last week or so, Mr. Meatball. That just shows how capricious the volatility markets are, sir. You were winning right up until you lost, sir.
Lovely.
Just thought I would share that with you in case anyone wanted to know what our picks were.
I was winning till I lost.
You were winning right up until you lost. Interesting that you would do better on the 1 year pick than you do on the weekly picks. Interesting. So yeah, listeners, we were kind of all over the place last year. We were like you guys. We weren't quite as elevated as you guys. You guys are thinking north of 23. We weren't quite there. But we were feeling a little bit more vol than we ended up getting for the year. Oh, we got here's a bunch of the votes here. Now I'm looking at them now. Our producer is putting them all into the chat. You guys I love you guys all over the place. 32.4, 27 and a quarter, 12.14, 13.3. Yeah, some of those. It's like your buddy Mr. Wales may have been close again. He may have to win another prize. We'll have to see. We haven't collated all the answers yet. He's been unerringly close now, 2 years in a row. The regulators may not have to have a chat with him for oh wow, there's a lot of predictions in here. Well, we'll have to sort through all of this right now. Producer, please stop pasting. It's too many to read here. All right, but yes, good stuff here. Let's do one more here before we'll sort through all those and find a winner. And if you did win, we'll send you out some fun, fabulous prizes. Let's see. Let's do one more here. This comes from the creatively named Food Fight. Food Fight wants to know, what is your favorite vol memory? Vol memory of 2019. My favorite vol memory. I've been talking for a while, Mr. Meatball. I'll let you go first on this one. What is your favorite volatility memory of 2019, sir?
My favorite volatility memory of 2019. Well, let's see. We had some volatility action. I'm going to say that my favorite volatility memory is going to be the utter collapse that we saw from, let's say, 11:20 to about 12:15. I think that over that period of time, we saw VXX go from about 22 down to 15. Lost about half its value in a couple of weeks. That was pretty impressive.
That was pretty impressive. This is a hard one. I may have to do a self-serving answer and say I think it's, for me, obviously 2019 was an interesting year. A lot of stuff going on. For me, my favorite vol memory of the year is our friends over there at MIAC stepping up, showing themselves to be big fans of Volatility Views and indeed big supporters of the program. A long-running program, very storied program, very popular program, also a very specific program. So it only makes sense for a handful of firms to want to be a part of it. And when SIBO had all their legal woes beset them in the VIX space, it was great to see the MIAX folks say, hey, we're in the space, we're stepping up, we're big fans of the show, we want to make sure everyone gets to keep listening to all things Volatility Views. So that is my self-serving, yet true. That is indeed my favorite volatility memory of 2019. I lied, Mr. Meatball. We got one more because this is just a fun question and very timely as well. You might like this one, I think. It comes from Nibs. I like the handle, too, Nibs. Nibs wants to know, he said, you guys like the wars. I think he means Star Wars. He says, what did you guys think of ROTS? I'm assuming he means Rise of the Skywalker and Mandalorian. Love the Mandalorian. Rise of the Skywalker, a little bit more mixed, but I enjoyed it overall. You know, I watched it with my kid. My kid just wants to see a fun Star Wars movie end of the day, and that's pretty much what it is. It's fan service, the movie. Some people take it to task for that. They didn't like it, but I enjoyed it. It was fun. I think it kind of depends what your views were of The Last Jedi and what you think of the new movie, because this movie is very much a direct counterpoint to that. If you like the last one, you'll hate this one, and vice versa. I wasn't much of a fan of the last one, so this one I enjoyed, but I could see people who had nits to pick with it. Mr. Meatball, have you seen either of these, and what do you think? You've seen the Baby Yoda one at very least, I think, right?
Well, yes. I feel like I coined the phrase Baby Yoda, personally.
Yes. That came from you and no one else on the internet, sir.
Correct. But I'm going to, I really enjoyed The Mandalorian. I got to say, I was pleasantly surprised by Rise of Skywalker. I think the thing to understand is that they had, Rian Johnson so thoroughly screwed up the planned narrative that, what really drags down Rise of Skywalker is making up for all of the mess left behind by The Last Jedi. And, it also didn't help that they killed off the wrong Skywalker in the last movie. Would have helped if the Skywalker that lived at the end of the last movie was the actor was actually alive when they began filming the most recent one.
Yeah, that was a bit of a poor move on their part, obviously. And you're right, this film is pretty much a direct response, contradiction, correction, call it what you will, of the previous movie, which is a strange thing to see in a major franchise, them course-correcting and then course-correcting the course correction. It's a strange move to not have some sort of overarching plan for the whole narrative, but c'est la vie. I think it ends on an enjoyable front. You may disagree, either way. It's Star Wars. That's what it's about. It's about fun at the end of the day. As we keep on rolling into our final segment, it is time for the crystal ball.
It's time to peer into the future and reveal what the volatility gods hold in store. It's time to look into the crystal ball.
All right, everybody, welcome to the crystal ball. This is the most difficult, the most dangerous part of the program, where we attempt to wrestle the slippery pig that is volatility, usually for the coming week. This is the most dangerous one of the year right now because we have to go out an entire year to try to prognosticate where VIX and spikes will be at the end of the year. We're going to play along with you guys here. We've got to see if we can wrestle the Rock Lobster's prediction in from him. But, by the way, speaking of the Rock Lobster, last time we did the show 2 weeks ago, he and I had the unenviable task of attempting to predict volatility 2 weeks into the future. Mr. Rock Lobster was feeling a little bit upside, not quite as much as we have right now. He was at a 1275. Of course, my quotes are frozen, because what fun would that be if they weren't? But, yeah, coming into showtime here, we are seeing a lot of interesting changes here. Yeah, we're at about 1375. That makes more sense. In the VIX cash and spikes at a similar level here. So Mr. Rock Lobster about a point away. I was feeling 11 double. I was feeling a little bit less to the downside. So neither of us really within the margin of victory. But all that's a preamble, Mr. Rock Lobster. Or I should say Mr. Meatball. For the most difficult challenging task we have for the entire year, which is what are you feeling for the end of the year, VIX spikes close here, the end of 2020? I'll be charitable. I'll let you go first if you like. Or you want me to go first? I'll go first. What do you feel like?
For 2020, I am thinking 1410.
1410 for an end-of-year close for VIX/spikes. We'll do both. We'll be charitable. That way you have two swings at the bat. Looks like the Rock Lobster has now sent in virtually his prognostication as well. He's feeling a very Columbus-centric 1492. You know, this is a question I've been wrestling with for a little while now. We've been talking about where vol will be on some of our programs like the advisor's option at the end of the year for some time. And it's been interesting and challenging really to come up with arguments for why vol will be markedly different this year from what it was last year. Obviously, we have an election cycle coming up, and that could certainly inject a little vol into things. But, you know, this election cycle, there's a lot of known knowns there. In the past, outside of 2016 being a dramatic outlier, outside of those, there aren't too many scenarios where that will inject sustained vol. It certainly could. I feel us on a similar trajectory to what we've had. That's what I've been prognosticating on our other shows, and I'm going to lean that way again as well. I'm going to say, coming into the end of the year, we're going to see a nice low end of normal VIX right around, and spikes are right around a 1255. All right, listeners, that music means we've come to the end. A trouble-free, problem-free episode of Volatility Views. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. Let's see what's cooking with our cohorts here in the land of the pit that may interest you, Mr. Meatball. If our folks are intrigued, they want to kick the New Year's off, and everyone's got New Year's resolution. Maybe someone's resolution out there is, hey, I want to learn about this volatility thing. What you guys have in store from over there in the land of the pit, sir?
You know, go to optionpit.com, get on our mailing list, and I'm going to have my next blog out in the next couple of days. Should be really great and fun, and looking forward to it. So go to optionpit.com, read my blog, give me your email, and you'll get more blogs.
There you go. Go to optionpit.com, read his blog, give him the email so you can get more blogs. Of course, check him out over there on the old YouTubes as well, Option Pit. I see a growing number of you like our stuff on YouTube. But again, it's not our preferred platform to put it out. It kind of just goes out there in an automated fashion. But if you're liking it that way, enjoy it. We don't judge. As long as you're listening, sending in questions and comments, playing along on our polls, you can consume it however you like. And of course, check out our friends over there in the land of spikes as well. MyAxOptions.com/spikes is the place to go for all the information on that. You get updates on when the futures maybe will be going live with some more releases there. You get that snazzy little video that explains spikes in about 2 minutes for you. Get quotes, the market data, all the fun stuff you need over there as well. And on behalf of all of our friends over there in MyAx/Spike/T3 land, and of course, the Greasy Meatball and the Rock Lobster, and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, and subscribing, for making 2019 such a great year for this program. Don't worry, we'll go through and collate and sort all of your responses from last year to see if there are any winners lurking in there. And if you haven't played along yet, get on over there, add options on the Twitter machine, or you know how to find us on the website via email or anywhere else. Get those specific picks in over the next few days, and we'll get them all sorted and ready to see if any. So far, from your early prognostications, you guys are all over the map, which is kind of fun. That's what makes the market. So get those picks in, and we'll see you back here next week for more Volatility Views.
Volatility Views is brought to you by MyAx, one of the fastest options platforms in the world. MyAx is now trading options on the Spikes Volatility Index, offering pinpoint accuracy, radically faster dissemination, and a highly transparent settlement auction for confident trading, all for competitive exchange fees. It's time to make a change and give yourself an edge with Spikes. Learn more about Spikes at www.myAxOptions.com/spikes. Options involve risk and are not suitable for all investors. The statements made are provided for information purposes only and are not intended to provide and should not be relied on for financial or legal advice. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.